Head over to patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps and sign up for my free content page, where I'll be interacting with you, doing live streams, posting exclusive content, sending out newsletters, and dropping a major limited series podcast exclusively for Patreon members later this year. That's patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps. patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps. A woman is scheduled to be at a social event in Prescott, Arizona, but fails to show up. A friend reports her missing, and a search gets underway. Meanwhile, 2 notes she apparently wrote are found. One says she left town on her own and won't be back. The other insists that all of her possessions, along with custody of her kids, be handed over to her estranged husband. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. Welcome to the show. Thanks for making Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps part of your weekly podcast listening experience. I'm so grateful for your continued support. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, take a look at the show page where you get your podcasts and look for the newest addition to the Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps family, Shortcuts. These are shorter episodes covering cases we can actually help with, I think, and other cases I wouldn't necessarily include in the longer weekly format. I'd like to also add this. We talk about serious issues here, and this week's case focuses on a crime I found to be beyond the pale of cruelty, touching on some of our worst fears. Let's get started. 39-year-old Sandra Pagniano has silky, thick, dark black hair against her olive complexion, dark eyebrows, and near perfect blemish-free skin. Friends and family have said Sandra's elegant look only adds to the wholesome beauty she carries inside her heart. In that sense, many found it hard to believe Sandra had fallen for a rather dumpy-looking dude. 55-year-old David Pagniano. He has a bald head, droopy facial skin, and these close-set, large, bulgy eyes, coupled with what is his outspoken, harsh, brash temperament. The two of them just didn't seem to be a good fit. And yet beauty and love, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder. We've seen this play out countless times in true crime cases. The Pagnianos live in Prescott, Arizona, in the northeast part of town on the edge of the Prescott National Forest, which boasts some 950 miles of trails, fishing and boating areas, and campground. Prescott itself is in the central part of the state and known quite well for Whiskey Row, a line of bars, restaurants, and live music venues. You want to party and you're in or near Prescott, Whiskey Row is your go-to for that sort of vibe. Although David and Sandra are living in the same house, they are living separate lives. Still, Sandra's world is made up of walking on eggshells, with tension and anxiety around every corner. Anybody who's been there knows what I'm talking about. Although they slept under the same roof, Sandra is in the process of divorcing David after years of struggling to keep the marriage afloat. After all, they have 2 daughters, 8 and 12 years old, and Sandra, being the consummate mother, always putting her children's needs before anything else, she tried to give the marriage every chance she could to right itself, saving those kids from the pain of what has been a nasty, combative fight to end it. You see, David is that guy. You leave me, I'll make sure you get nothing. I'll take the kids, yada, yada, yada. We all know this type. They hurl the same tired threats at their spouse, crank up the insults, and make life hell for everyone around them, when, in fact, they are to blame for the mess they've created. On Friday, March 19th, 2017, there's no doubt Sandra is looking forward to getting out of the house and away from David. At some point that day, Sandra begins putting the finishing touches on an outfit she plans to wear that night to a social event where she is meeting several friends and getting out into the community. Sandra takes great pride in being part of the larger community and participating in those places where she can make a difference. That's who she is. Part of that includes these events. She believes that supporting your neighbors and friends is the loving thing to do. You take care of one another. Raised in an extremely loving home herself, she relishes in giving back. You could even say she adapted this quality with her kids and the divorce, wanting to get them out of a hostile environment to start over, which in her case means leaving an overbearing, controlling husband and father. As that event is underway later on into the evening, one of Sandra's friends realizes she hasn't seen her, which is a bit weird. Sandra had talked about how much she's been looking forward to hanging out with friends and getting out of the house. Additionally, she is not one to ever be late. As you might have guessed by now, Sandra never arrives. Calls are made. No answer. Friends inquire around looking for her. She's nowhere to be found. One day turns into two. Friends and family know there is not a chance on this earth Sandra would abandon her children. Better yet, leave them with a brute like their father without first making plans or telling someone, especially not during such a perilous moment of hashing out a divorce. David is fighting her on every single minor issue. As May 20th comes to pass, nobody has seen or heard from Sandra. David isn't saying much and doesn't appear to be all that concerned. So, Sandra's friend goes to the police and files a missing person report on May 21st, the following day. Someone needs to start looking for her. Beginning that same day, the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office begins asking around, looking for Sandra, making a plea to the media that she has, quote, disappeared under suspicious circumstances during a contentious divorce, which is another way of saying, don't worry, we have the husband in our sights. And the fact that David never reported her missing is also something they take into consideration with one eyebrow raised. What those suspicious circumstances are, the Yavapai sheriff does not share publicly, for fear, I guess, of alarming Sandra's family or tipping off anyone who might have had something to do with her disappearance. After all, couples involved in these bitter, argumentative divorces can check out and take time alone to gather their thoughts and plan their next moves. It's not unheard of that one side disappears only to show up a week later saying, I needed to sort myself out. Who knows at this point where she is? David says he has no clue. They are separated, and he has not been keeping tabs on her for quite some time. This area where the Pagnianos live is not conducive to what will be an easy search. It's not like a more condensed neighborhood setting, per se, where you can knock on doors and go through people's garages and sheds. Everything here is spread out, with massive open fields, hilly terrain, riverbeds and culverts, and dense brush, on top of that Arizona heat. It doesn't take long, however, for the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office to put together a large group of volunteers, police officers, and a canine unit to begin combing through the immediate area in and around the Pagnianos' house. But after a few days of tireless searching, they come up with nothing. Not even a scent the dogs hit on to follow. Which means what? That it's likely either Sandra took off on her own in a vehicle or was abducted and taken far away. But where? How does one even begin to look anywhere else? In such a spread out landscape, where would you even start? Telephones. Yes. Get the phones of her kids and her husband and anyone else close to Sandra and take a look at the movements of those people. Focus on the day and night of May 19th. See what comes out of it. People live their lives in patterns. We all generally go to the same places, same stores, visit the same family members, and so on. If you are investigating, you get into the phones and you look for anomalies. You also look to see if Sandra is dating anyone. Does she have a boyfriend? Any possible scenario has to be on the table. If you don't find anything after that part of the investigation, you look at those closest to Sandra. Did she even make it to the venue that night? Is there CCTV from the area? Maybe ring camera video from the neighbors? And so this is what investigators do. As digital forensics are searching through the phones, investigators find something inside the documentation for the Pagniano's divorce. Within that paperwork, they discover 2 notes, apparently written by Sandra. One note is addressed to David. Take everything, it says. I'm leaving. You can have my vehicles, the house, and custody of the kids. The other note is to the kids. I had to leave, which places an obstacle at the center of the search for Sandra, seeing that it appears as though she had taken off on her own. I think this is a good spot for our first break. I'll be right back. These notes purportedly left by Sandra. Let's dig into that clue for a moment here. They feel convenient, am I right? Knowing the little bit of information about Sandra I've given you, would you draw the conclusion that she had left a note saying, take everything? I'm checking out of our lives? Would she take off and leave her children behind? Not a chance. And you've all watched enough Dateline to know that when a spouse goes missing, place a bullseye on the husband's back, take a shot at him. Fact is, when a spouse disappears, 90-something times out of 100, if you go after the husband, you are likely going to solve your case. Add a contentious divorce going on to that formula, and Sandra talking about being scared of this dude, his overall abrasive, aggressive attitude, and David has to be the first person of interest you focus on. Scratch him off your list, and you can move on to other potential scenarios and suspects, which is exactly what investigators do. The problem for David is that there are no other suspects. Sandra didn't have enemies. She wasn't some sort of troublemaker out in the world creating problems. She didn't have ex-boyfriends or a secret lover. She is a mother who takes care of her kids, shows up to where she's supposed to be, but has suddenly gone completely AWOL. The common denominator in it all has to be that Dateline trope, her husband. So investigators drill down into this right away. The first thing they do is send those notes out to be forensically looked at and tested. Find out if Sandra wrote them. If she didn't, David is going to have big problems. When that handwriting analysis comes back, it's clear to the specialist that David had written the notes and placed them into the divorce file. This puts the entire focus, of course, on David. He knows where she is. However, you can blame the husband, you can claim he wrote those notes, you can put surveillance on him, badger him all you want, but without a body, as they like to say in the mob, there is no crime. Can you tell us where she is? Investigators press David. I have no knowledge about her or where she could be. That's what he says. It takes another 24 hours, but on May 24th, just 3 days after that missing person report was filed, Yavapai investigators believe they have enough to arrest David. A judge agrees and signs off on a warrant to pick him up. Officially, David is charged with suspicion of second-degree murder. The evidence they present, which is under seal, convinces the judge because David's bond is set at $2 million. He is not getting out of jail. That is clear. What evidence could have been uncovered to make an arrest without a body? David's telephone. That is the key to this case. The GPS and health app data on that phone have undoubtedly given them enough to theorize that David had murdered his wife. If you're an avid weekly listener, you might recall a case I covered last year. Investigators actually pinpointed the time of a murder by studying the health app data, which showed what they deemed was a struggle going on at a particular time and then a period of rest right after. They believed in that case that was the moment when the murder occurred. And they were right. Here's the thing about these cases as well, which is something that makes my blood boil. With David's arrest and Sandra missing, their two kids, just 8 and 12, are now without any parent. It's a devastating reality for them. They woke up one day to their mother gone, and now their father is in jail. Not far from where the Pagnianos lived, there is a corner store where Sandra went every morning to buy her coffee. The clerks there all know her. They love her, talk about how wonderful and warm and what a kind-hearted soul she is. And then one day, she just stopped coming in. Yavapai investigators grabbed the CCTV from that store to see if there's any indication Sandra had made it to the parking lot. They're trying to pinpoint the exact time she went missing, which will give them a better understanding of what to look for. At the same time, digital forensics come through with all the data from David's phone. Also, when they first went to the house to speak with David, he came across detached from the entire situation, as if he could not care less about his wife being missing. When they went inside the house, investigators later said they saw indications that led them to believe that there might have been some sort of struggle, like a fight. None of this is good news. Then the media reports that a large presence of volunteers, Yavapai deputies and officers, the Yavapai County Search and Rescue Team, and what they call a Jeep posse is gathering about 10 miles northwest of the Pagnianos' house. This is also bad news. They bring in the Rescue 1 helicopter to conduct flyovers of the area, which again is heavily settled desert and mountain with streams and culverts, a rough terrain to search. The area they focus in on is not too large, so they have somehow pinpointed a location. And my bet is, considering that David is still not talking, the GPS data from his phone provided that tip. They set up a grid search and begin. In another area not far away, the search dog unit seems to be making progress. They soon come upon an area of what they call man-made tool marks in the sandy soil of a dried-out riverbed. They unleash the dogs and let them sort it out. "Over here," one of them shouts. They've found something. I've been on these search dog missions, I guess we could call them, looking for bodies in the woods. When the dog alerts on a specific area, there is no doubt about it. One dog with us on the day I was there found a particular spot, began digging, and then laid down on the spot and sat there. With those obvious tool marks in the soil, investigators show up, have a look, and begin digging. I have to tell you, when I listen to a true crime podcast, what I am looking for is hosts qualified to talk about what it is they are actually talking about. It's pretty hard to find these days. My friends Alice and Brett from the Prosecutors podcast have the experience and knowledge to drill deep into the cases they cover with sensitivity, factual reporting, engaging storytelling, and the perfect amount of personal chit-chat. So I encourage you to check out The Prosecutors, a top-notch true crime podcast, wherever you get your favorite shows. You won't be disappointed. Let's take our final break here. Come right back. As they carefully dig in that spot the dogs hit on, being mindful that each shovelful of dirt or sand could contain evidence, investigators see something. Clearly, as they brush away the soil, it's the body of a female. And she has not been dead long. Within a few minutes, it's clear that they have discovered the body of Sandra Pagniano. Next, they secure the site and bring in forensics. They continue the dig until the evening, then transport Sandra's body to the morgue for autopsy, which is where they begin to learn what happened to her. If you recall what I said at the top of the episode, what they find is beyond alarming, brutal, and barbaric, to be quite honest with you. When the medical examiner comes back after the autopsy, it takes the case from second-degree murder to a capital felony, which we all know is punishable by the death penalty, and rightly so in this case. Not only had David bound the mother of his children before gagging her with packing tape, but he buried Sandra alive. The medical examiner is certain that Sandra was alive when David placed her inside a makeshift grave and covered her with soil. I don't say this lightly. There is a special place in a fiery hell for a scumbag like this man. While she slept, I'm guessing on the night of May 18th maybe, David snuck into Sandra's room with the children sleeping just nearby, kidnapped her, bound her, gagged her, and drove her out to that remote area before burying her alive. Evidence showed that Sandra had, quote, struggled vigorously while she was in the grave. They estimate she was conscious for up to 5 minutes before she basically suffocated to death. As I predicted, his cell phone showed David visiting the area a few days before she went missing, and then again on the night she was kidnapped. David is found guilty at trial in 2024. He is able to escape the death penalty somehow and is instead sentenced to life plus 16 and a half years. From Venezuela, Sandra was a loving, caring, supportive, happy soul. She lived for her children. She died because of a coward who couldn't get his way. My office pursued the death penalty in this case because of the horrific circumstances surrounding the abduction and murder of a young mother, County Attorney Dennis McGrain says in a statement. A year after Sandra's murder, her mother posts a touching note on Facebook writing, "She is an angel, surrounded by angels, and will always be remembered." One of the most frequently asked questions I get in cases like this is why? Why not just get a divorce and move on? Why do these guys do this? I don't think we're asking the right question. The proper question is, when and how did this brutal crime begin to manifest inside the mind of the killer? I bet if we search long and hard enough, the answer is there. And that answer generally involves narcissism, grandiose thoughts, previous violence, and a host of other antisocial disorders. There is no why. There is no rationalization in the mind of these guys. I don't want to call them men. They do this because they want to do this. It's their way of dealing with the issues and problems in their life. I need a favor. Please spread word about our show on social media and word of mouth, of course. And subscribe to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Don't forget to leave a review of the show, especially on Apple Podcasts. I'm doing this show independently now, free from any corporate or big podcasting media company involvement. And this allows me to bring you more of the content you want to hear and have written in and asked me for. This is completely our show. Reviews and subscriptions truly help. I could not do this show without you. And that support, I must tell you, means everything to me personally. It's incredibly humbling. And I want to thank each of you for listening. I mean this. You have a lot of choices out there, and I'm grateful you've landed on Crossing the Line. We can grow this show together, which will allow me to do even bigger things with it and bring you the content you want. If you go to crossingtheline.biz, mwilliamphelps.com, or look in the show notes, you can contact me to suggest cases or just say hello. Please look for me across all social media platforms at M. William Phelps. That's the @ symbol in my name, M. William Phelps. That's it for this week. Be safe. Be aware. Sources for this episode include Man Sentenced to Life in Prison for Burying Wife Alive, KPHO News, Jordan Gardner, May 18, 2024. Man Whose Estranged Wife Vigorously Struggled, Huffington Post, Drusilla Morehouse, May 20th, 2024. I also looked at court documents and an arrest warrant. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinus, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.